Hi, everyone. This is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, tuning in once again for another EE Live Q&A here from my offices at Stringham LLP in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I will wait just a little bit for the live attendees to join me. It's always a little bit interesting because I try to do a number of different things to bring these live question and answer sessions to the attention of everybody in the Facebook group as well as YouTube. I generally try to do these every Tuesday at noon Mountain Standard Time. So that's here in Alberta, Canada time. And it seems like that works out the best for me and for most of our viewers. I know that some of you over in other parts of the world are listening in at a very early hour in the morning, and I appreciate you doing that. It's always hard because I've tried to do it in the evenings, I've tried to do it during the day, I've tried to do it in the morning, and the reality is when it comes to live viewers, it seems like I still get the same numbers. So if that's the case, then I take time during my lunch break here at my office because I am an associate here with the law firm and I still have to meet all the obligations that the firm expects of me. So noon for me tends to work the best. And if for everyone else that's watching, it really doesn't make a difference, especially for you who are tuning in live, then that is what we're going to do. So what I'd like for you guys to do, as always, is just chime in and let me know where you're listening in from. At this stage, I'm still doing these live Q&As within our private Facebook group because it's a special group. And although there's 115,000 people in it, I want to give you guys who are members and who are dedicated and committed to helping one another, I want to give you guys the benefit of a live video. So this is exclusively for you. But I will tell you that if I was to do it on my Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page, it would be a whole lot easier to respond to comments and questions because it's not visible when I do it in my private group. So I end up having to use my phone here and look at your comments as well as trying to multitask and answer the questions at the same time. So as I've indicated repeatedly, this is it. I am the producer. I'm the editor. I am the person that's doing the presentation. I am everything. And really, when you're a jack of all trades, you end up becoming a master of none. And that's what I am. But hopefully you can look past all of these technical glitches and the issues that we always face when I'm doing this and see that there's some value being created from this. So if you think that this EE Live Q&A is worth it, just give me a thumbs up because I can see those thumbs up live. Now I'm just trying to pull up the actual feed here on my phone for our live video. There we go. And I'm just going to turn off the volume here. Nothing like watching yourself live. And then I can swipe over and there's the comments. Okay, so we have Mohana says, hi, Mark. Hi, great to see you. Asrafal says, well, looks like he's tagging someone else in the video, which is awesome. I love Asrafal's tagging Manzilla. So that's exactly the best way to let people know that this is going live. But for those of you who are tuning in on YouTube, the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel, know that if you become a member of the private Express Entry Law Facebook group, then you can watch this live as well. But regardless, I still take your questions right here and I answer those live. So whether those questions are coming from the whole world through YouTube or just through our group, they are ones that I will address if they are of general applicability to everyone here in the group. Okay, so people are already starting to fire off questions here, and I'll tell you guys to hold off on those questions because I'm only going to answer those once I get through my introduction and these first emails that came through. And if you want to be able to send me a question, all you have to do is send it to my email address right here, mholthe@stringham.ca. And don't forget to put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. If you don't do that, then I won't know that it's meant for this. And I get thousands of inquiries all the time from people all over the world looking for answers to their questions. And if it's a specific question, I always direct it to my legal assistant, Charlene, who then will ask you if you'd like to set up a paid consultation, which, as you've followed from our Express Entry Law Facebook group, it is 100% worth it for you to do that if you have something very difficult and specific to you. But for general questions about express entry, that's what this is for. So you post them, I can answer them once here in my video, and they go out to everybody that's a part of our group, and even YouTube and the world. So you can see there's an advantage to me answering the general questions in this format because there's so much benefit that comes to all the other people. I can really amplify my message. So rather than having one-on-one question and answer, I can answer the question once and everybody can see and benefit from the answer. So that is, that's kind of how this whole process is set up. Okay, so what I want you guys to do as I'm going through all of the questions, I want you to list where you're listening in from. So just post right now below all the different countries that you're listening in from, because I absolutely love to see this. This is what inspires me to know that my message is going global. So as I scroll through here, we've got Astra Falls from Dhaka. Very cool. Awesome. We've got a wave from Monique. And then we've got a string of questions. Saima is from Pakistan. Welcome, Saima. And then we have, let's see here, just looking to see if anybody else has posted it. People are already posting their questions, which, like I said, you guys have to be patient here. Let's see. Oh, Trinidad, Tobago, Candace. I think I told you, Candace, that my son is waiting for his, well, he actually has his visa now to go. He's going to serve a mission for our church in Trinidad. And actually, he's going in particular to Suriname. So Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago, and the ABC Islands are all part of his mission that he's going to serve for our church. And so he had an accident in the missionary training center in Provo, Utah, and he tore his ACL. So he had to come home to get surgery. And so he's just recovering. He's just about ready to go. And we've got his visa back now that's dated for September the 16th. So then he'll be flying back. So maybe he may even see you. All right, great. So Candace, very cool. Jobins is Dhabi, UAE, Abu Dhabi. Very cool. Monique is asking more questions. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Oh, Thotas says IELTS is holding me. And from the US, great. I love it when my American H-1Bs tune in. In fact, you guys, the last video I did was dedicated to you guys. Toto is the UAE. Have you guys seen what's happening with Saudi Arabia? So one of our foreign ministers commented on some potential human rights violations that Saudi Arabia was possibly guilty of, and they did not like that. So they expelled our our ambassador and recalled theirs and are freezing ties with Canada. So those of you who are in Saudi Arabia, we'll see how this plays out. But I guess they don't like people pointing out where there's human rights violations, but that's Canada, right? We believe in treating people fairly. Ashish is from India. Great. Let's see, where else do we have? Deepak's from the UK. Cool. Look at this all over the place. It's really awesome. Razib is from Dhaka as well. Very cool. Omar. Rubate is from Norway. Oh, Sharif. Sharif is from Norway. Very cool. I don't know if you guys know this, but my heritage, at least 50% of me, is Norwegian. So that's where my grandfather came from. And he was 100% Norwegian. And so obviously I'm kind of watered down on my mother's side, but I'm Norwegian on my father's side. I love people connecting from Norway. And Miriam is from Algeria. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. And we'll leave it at that. I know they're all pulling in, but you can see people listen in from all over the world, which really is so cool. And so although I slag Facebook about, not letting my messages get out to all of my members because they throttle it, I can't complain with the fact that I've got people viewing from all over the world. And Kur here is India as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. All right, let's get to this. So just for those of you who are new to this EE Live Q&A world, who may be watching on YouTube for the first time, this is where I get on. Canadian immigration lawyer Mark Holthe here, ex-immigration officer. I worked on the border as an immigration officer. Actually, the year that the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act became law. So I had training, and right when it very started, and that was while I was going through law school. I worked on the border during the summer. So, and then I worked with the hearings officers when people's applications are refused, then they can appeal. And so I worked as a pro bono student with the hearings officers in Calgary many years back as well. And because of that experience, that's why I got into immigration. So it's been absolutely awesome, and I've thoroughly loved it. And these videos are one of the reasons. It gives me a chance to, I should say, I was also a high school teacher before I became a lawyer. And so I get to use all of those things, teaching people, sharing my knowledge on immigration as an immigration lawyer, sharing insight as a former immigration officer. And you guys all are the ones who are the beneficiary of this. So, and in all honesty, those who take the time to send me a question via email to mholthy@stringham.ca and who put EE Live Q&A in the subject line, you also make this episode or this version of the EE Live Q&A even better with great questions. So we've got a great turnout today. Let's get right to the email ones that I sent first, and then that were sent to me first. And then after we're completed that, then I will get to answering your live questions. Usually we have a guest come on, but today I thought, you know what? It's the summer, people are busy. I'm just gonna answer questions today as much as I can, give you guys the most value that I possibly can. And I know it's a little bit crazy for people who are trying to watch this. And so bear with me as I have my pen here. And as people ask questions, I'm gonna pause, and then I'm gonna write down a timestamp. And that's gonna allow me to then list off in the description for the video, the question that was asked, and then the specific time in which I answer it. So if people want to scroll through and skip to specific answers, they can do that. But once again, guys, I am it. So you're going to have to bear with a little bit of choppiness, but let's dive in. This is going to be fun. Okay, this one is from Aksheth, and I will pull it up here so you can see. This one's from Aksheth. And the question is, Dear Mark, I hope you and your family are doing great. We are. In fact, do you know what? I'm going to show you guys something. Let's see if I can. Oh, I probably can't do it. Do you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to do this. You guys are just going to have to hang tight for a second because I want to share something with you. And it's going to take me just a second to share it. Let's see if I can here. Let's see. I'll try and find our selfie that we did. Okay, here we go. There we go. I'm going to share this one. And I know you guys are like, Mark, what are you doing? Like, just get to the answers. Well, I want to share something with you guys that I did on Saturday with my family, at least the ones that are around here, my dear family. Okay, and now I'm going to just take this. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. This is fun. Usually I'm more prepared than this. And usually if I had some support person helping me, it wouldn't be as difficult. But let's see if I can just share this picture just by doing this. Yes, I can. Okay, so this picture right here, this is me and my family. You can see we've got these little inflatable kayaks here, and we drifted, or we should say we paddled across Waterton Lakes because I wanted to check out this little stream that flowed between the two lakes. And so we got on our kayaks. Michaela's in the bottom left. My son Adam, who's come back from his mission to let his knee heal, he's there. You can see in the top right. My wife is the bottom right, and I'm the top left. And so my son Connor, he's off at a camp with a school camp for a couple weeks, which is really cool. And my daughter is on her mission, some of you may know, Jessica. She is on her mission serving in Indianapolis. So, all right, I want to, so how's my family? We're doing awesome. Okay. All right. So we're back here with my distracted self here. And now I'm going to get back to the actual video again. And let's get back to the questions. Okay, here we go. So that's how my family's doing. We're doing pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to adjust this back. All right, guys, you can see this is crazy. Like, this is not some professional high resolution camera fancy thing. I'm recording straight on my iMac. And that's just fine because the content overshadows the crappy production value here. Okay, so back to Aksheth's question here. Actually, Akshatha's question. I hope you and your family are doing great. We're doing fantastic. This is Akshatha from Bangalore, India, and this is my second email to you. However, the first one was pretty long, and I think you didn't read it. No worries. Please read whenever you can. Okay, and if the questions are too long, then it starts to get into more specific questions that then require an actual paid consultation. Okay, so here's the question. All right, and I'm going to make a note here, timestamp 1505. And if someone who attends these regularly says, Mark, I'll track the timing for you, you would rule. It would be so awesome because it's so difficult for me to write and then answer. Okay, so here's the question. Can I change the option of non-accompanying spouse to accompanying spouse once I get an ITA if my CRS remains higher than the draw cutoff even after changing to accompanying spouse? And then submit my EAPR with accompanying spouse. This is an awesome question. Akshatha, this is awesome because it opens up so many possibilities. So she says, my CRS is 435 with spouse and 457 without spouse. So listing the spouse as non-accompanying. And I will lose 5 points in September due to my birthday. So please advise. You're doing a fantastic job. God bless you and your family with loads of love, happiness, and peace. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Best regards, Akshatha. Thank you so much. Okay, Akshatha, this is what I'll tell you. So if you have received an ITA at, let's say, 457, you haven't indicated here if you've actually received an ITA. This is all hypothetical. So if you received an ITA at 457 points without your spouse, but if you list them as accompanying, then your CRS is 435. Well, this is a huge, huge issue. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, if your score at any point is below 440, it's very unlikely that you're going to get drawn right through the general ITA provisions of express entry. It's very, very unlikely that the rounds of invitations is going to drop below 440. In fact, this whole year of 2018, it has not dropped lower than 440 points. So that's the first part. But what I want to show you guys, because this EE Live Q&A is actually hosted on the Express Entry Law, LAW Law Facebook page, because I'm a lawyer and I want the answers to actually be legal. So what I want to show you, even though this technically is policy, I want to share my screen with you and I want to show you guys something. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to click on this right here and you guys should be able to see the page. I'm going to go to something called A11.2 EECIC. I know that this page, I've been to 100 times because I always refer to it. This is what drives the ship when it comes to adding a spouse. Now, it's not law. Understand there's a difference between what the government puts up on their website and what the actual Immigration and Refugee Protection Act and its regulations state. But for our purposes, these guidelines are instructive because this is how an officer is told to treat a situation when you're adding a spouse. So remember, guys, sometimes, and it's hard to keep jumping back and forth, but I'm going to pull this up. So this is the officer's instructions, and I could blow it up as big as maybe the whole screen here. I don't want to take out too much space here. Let's see if I blow this up. That's pretty big. I want to make it so you guys can see it, but I also don't want my image here in the bottom left to cloud or to block off anything. So, okay, so if you can see this describes any changes that happen in circumstances declared in an EAPR. So the EAPR is when you're filing your application after you get your ITA. So what happens if there is a change in your circumstances after you get your ITA, but before you file your EAPR? What is the effect of it? This is what we're talking about right here. And I've done previous EE Live Q&As on this topic as well, but we're going to just address it just for your purposes. So this is where you go. You go to this site if you want to Google it yourself. It's Express Entry Assessing an Electronic Application on Section A11.2, which is the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, Section 11.2. So when we go down here, you will see that you're required to maintain your MECs. So basically that means that when you are applying to immigrate to Canada through Express Entry, you have to be able to show that you meet the minimum entry criteria or eligibility criteria for one of the permanent resident programs. And for most of you outside of Canada, it's the Federal Skilled Worker Program. So you need to continue to meet all of those requirements, including that 67-point selection criteria, which is based out of 100 points. And I won't get into big details with that because you can go back and look at it, the minimum requirements for the Federal Skilled Worker Program. And you have an obligation to maintain the CRS score. And so the question that we received here from Akshatha is she says that her score will go down. But the question was, well, what if it goes down, but it's still above the pass mark? So what happens if you add your spouse and your score is above the pass mark? So let's say the total was 440 and Akshatha received 457 points on her own. But then she says, okay, I want to now, after getting the ITA, add my spouse. Now, who knows why? For whatever reason, why she would want to do that. But if you were already married and you listed your spouse as non-accompanying and then want to add them before you actually land, but after you file your EAPR, and I know this is confusing. So you've submitted your application, you've received an ITA as with a non-accompanying spouse. Then when you're filing your EAPR, you decide, hey, I want to add them in. Or even after filing your EAPR, you notify IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, that you want to add your spouse back on now. They changed their mind. You have to understand that you must, at that stage, when you're adding on a spouse that you've had before and changing them from non-accompanying to accompanying, you actually have to make sure that when you add them in, that when they're assessed, because they can go back and they can reassess, at that stage, that spouse with their score combined with yours has to still be above the pass mark. So if Akshatha here has a score of 457 without her spouse, and then she wants to add her spouse, basically what happens is at that stage, if her pass mark, let's say she received the ITA at 440 points. If with her spouse, it's only 435, this could cause the application to be refused. But if you try to add a spouse and the score is even with the spouse above 440 points still, then that can be okay. So in her case, she's got other factors, including losing 5 points in September with her birthday. If you are choosing to add a spouse, understand that that is a very volatile process. But let's go down here. And it's not something that can be fully canvassed in this EE Live Q&A, but I want to show you something here as I scroll down. There's a specific section here. So if your birthday occurs after you get your ITA, and you never asked this, but if you got your ITA and then you have a birthday before you file your EAPR, your birth date is actually locked in so you don't lose age points. So that's a bonus. Your points don't go down 5 points. Okay, and then we're going to go here. So changing circumstances, and here is the one I wanted to show you guys, changes to family composition. So it indicates that even if your spouse is non-accompanying, they still have to be examined as part of the EAPR, whether they're accompanying or not. And you have to understand that family members can be added to the application all the way up to before the visa was issued, but before obtaining permanent resident status. And so there's instructions for how to deal with that. So if you have a child, they can be added. If you get married and you weren't previously married when you got your ITA and submitted your EAPR, if you're being newly married, you can add them without any problem after submitting your EAPR. But one thing you never ever want to do is not disclose them, because then Section 117(9)D of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act will potentially bar you from ever being able to sponsor that spouse if they were not fully examined. Because you can see here, family members must be examined. Spouses, that means a medical and police clearances, even if they're not accompanying you. And for dependent children, that means an immigration medical. So that has to take place. And you have to remember that pursuant to R41, the principal applicant may not include a spouse if it was only entered into for the purposes of securing an immigration status. So it's not genuine, which is fine. That's obvious. You're not just going to get married to someone and allow them to tag along with your application just to get them PR status and then divorce them after. Obviously, that's not too good. Okay. But you can see here that A11.2 does not apply when an applicant adds a family member to the application after filing their EAPR. So that specifically means that you can add a spouse, a new spouse. And this is the part that I had to seek confirmation from IRCC on, and they confirmed. So if you're adding a new spouse, in other words, you get married after you file your EAPR application, then you can add them without having A11.2 reassessed. In other words, them going back and assessing you as a married person. But you have to understand, and this is something that I sought clarification for, if you were previously married and listed your spouse as non-accompanying and then try to add them on after, the officer has the discretion to reassess everybody as a married couple, including your comprehensive ranking system score. And if your comprehensive ranking system score is actually lower than the pass mark that you originally received your ITA, then your application can get refused. Okay, so this was a great question. It was awesome, actually, and I'm really grateful that it was asked because it's one of the more complicated situations. And I will tell you that I was successful previously with obtaining PR status for someone who took a non-accompanying spouse and made them accompanying before they became permanent residents. So after they filed their EAPR. But after that happened, and I clarified that little gap, that loophole, then IRCC sent me back an email stating that that was not something that could happen in the future. And if an officer wanted to reassess my client based on a married couple, then and their comprehensive ranking system score was lower than the pass mark, then it could have unraveled my whole client's PR application. So if you are newly married, after you get your ITA and submit your EAPR, or even after you get your ITA, well, no, it's really before you submit your EAPR, then it's okay. But your spouse, you can include them if you want. If they're listed as non-accompanying, remember that you have to still get them medically examined and police clearances. But if they're a non-accompanying spouse, you are assessed as an unmarried candidate. Okay, so hopefully that answers some of your questions. And if you choose not to include your spouse, then your only option is to land, become a permanent resident, and then sponsor them after. Okay, so that is a whack of information. And that's why this one is going to be entitled Non-Accompanying Spouses, because that is all of the ins and outs of adding or not adding a spouse. And some people may say, well, why? What's the big deal? Why would you not want to add your spouse? Well, if your spouse, and I'm going to go back and share my screen again. If your spouse, if we go to CRS criteria here, and we'll open it up. If you are if you're applying as an individual applicant, and I'm going to blow this up for my whole page here. If you're applying, you can see right here with the scores. I'm going to close that out. If you're applying with a spouse, you can see you're only given 100 points for age, 140 for level of education, 150 for language. But over here, if you're single, you get 110 for age, 150 for education, 160 for official languages. And so if you scroll through here, you can see there are a total of 40 points that are attributed to your spouse that are basically taken off of your point total as an individual applicant. And if your spouse has low education, cannot speak English, or has no Canadian work experience, obviously, often this one doesn't really matter because most people don't. But there's 30 points difference that can be attributed to an individual candidate's application if their spouse is listed as non-accompanying. And so there's a great motivation for people who are right on the edge of qualifying to choose to list their spouse as non-accompanying so that they can themselves qualify and get that ITA and then later sponsor their spouse. So super long answer, but really important that people understand because it can make the difference between immigrating to Canada and not. Okay. Akshata, that was a phenomenal question, worthy of a big toss. Okay, next question here. And this one here is from Rabia. And it states, Dear Mr. Holfey, and I'm going to just put down here the time again. And that last one took a little bit of time, but it was really important. Okay, hope this email finds you well. I have a query related to work experience. I do not have 1 year continuous experience in one job. I have worked in different jobs for 5 months, 10 months, 8 months, 9 months, which was their own company, which is now in the process of voluntary winding up after 9 months. And now I'm working since 4 months for another company. Could you please explain the following in relation to my work experience? Am I not eligible yet to apply? So, Rabia, usually I don't answer specific questions as to whether or not someone is qualified or not. And in all honesty, I can't even tell you based on the information that you've given me. But let's go to this minimum requirement, because this is often something that people struggle with. I'm going to open this up. This time I'm going to go to Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility right there. And I'm going to click on the link. And this is the specific reference that Rabia actually sent to me. So you can see here, remember in the last, when we were doing the assessment here and I was talking to you about the requirements, well, a person has to meet the minimum entry criteria. If I scroll down here, okay, so they have to maintain the minimum entry criteria, and that minimum entry criteria relates to either the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Canadian Experience Class, or the Federal Skilled Trade Program. So you have to meet those requirements. That's right off the bat in order to even get into the pool. Well, if you go back here, here are the requirements for the Federal Skilled Worker Program. And because the government does this assessment electronically when you are determining your eligibility for express entry, many people don't even know it exists. And so it's important that you can understand that this does play a super important role if you do not, like if you've got work experience in the same way as Rabia has here. So if we go through here and we look at it, you can see that it has to be in the same type of job as your primary NOC. So your work experience must be in the same type of job as your primary NOC within the last 10 years, paid. It can't be volunteer. It has to be skilled. So in other words, it has to be 0A or B in the National Occupational Classification System. And it has to be, and this is the most important part, at least 1 year, the equivalent of 1,560 hours, at least 30 hours per week, and it must be continuous. So in the case of Rabia, there's multiple jobs. Now, multiple different jobs in and of themselves may not be an issue. But what is an issue is that they all have to be in the same NOC. And that's the question that I couldn't get answered, Rabia. From your email, you just indicated that you moved from one job to another to another. And so the minimum requirement is that you have at least within the last 10 years in the same job, 1 year of continuous skilled full-time work experience. So that's the key. So the question then becomes, Rabia, you can accumulate this 1 year in a couple different ways. So full-time working for one job, which means at least 30 hours a week for 12 months. So you can't work extra hours and obtain 1,560 hours before you work for the full 12 months. So you can't just work more and get all of these hours accumulated in 11 months and then say, yes, I'm good to go. So in your first job, which you said you worked 5 months and then another one 10 months, even in the one that you worked for 10 months, if you had worked full time with many overtime hours, that still wouldn't be enough because one of them has to meet the minimum requirements. But here's the key here. If you look at it, it can be an equal amount in part-time. And I don't know with all of these different jobs if you were full-time or part-time, and that's fine. But you can see here full-time at more than one job. So you can also be working more than one job at the same time and accumulate those hours. So 30 hours per week, 12 months at more than one job, 1 year, or an equal amount in part-time, which is actually stretched out over 24 months. So what this is saying is that if your position that you're trying to accumulate is all in the same NOC, as long as it meets the 1,560 hours, and even if you move from one company to another, as long as it's all in the same NOC, and you can see here in the same type of job as your primary NOC, then you can include it. And so for Rabia here, I don't know what the NOCs are, but you can combine different jobs for, well, the same type of job. Let's say I worked as a human resource professional in one company. Let's say that's the position that Rabia is indicating here. And Rabia worked as a human resource professional for one company for 5 months, and then the next company for 10 months. If there was no gap between those jobs and it was just continuous, then you can count that as long as it was in the same NOC, it was continuous, so there was no break. So job number 1 for 5 months, you ended on the 31st of whatever, July, and then you started August the 1st, the next 10 months for the next company, and it was still as a human resource professional, then you can count it. But from Rabia, from your email here, I couldn't tell exactly whether or not this was all in the same NOC code. And if it isn't in the same NOC code, then no, you would not qualify. You would not meet the minimum entry criteria or eligibility criteria. Okay, great question. We'll launch this one as well. Awesome. Okay, last written question. And this one, let's see if I can find it here. Got to make sure I have everything here. Actually, do you know what, guys? That's it. So I just had 2 questions and they were kind of big today. But now is the opportunity for all of you fine folks to now start submitting me your questions. And I will keep them here and see if I can track all of this as we go forward. But we are now in the stage where I will answer your questions. So as you're going through and you're completing these, what I want you to do, or posting your comments, and I will start right after. Okay, so Gurpal says, can I apply for my wife? I am on a work permit. Okay, so I'm going to just put that one as the starting question. But before I transition to that, I'm going to have just a short little transition piece. And one of the things that I want to do, so you can start posting your questions now, and I will review them sequentially as they are added right after it is Gurpal. So hopefully it doesn't scroll on me. Okay, I want to show you guys something. So I think a lot of you guys know already that I have created for you guys a do-it-yourself guide, essentially. So many of you don't even know why I did this. And obviously my legal fees are often more expensive than people can afford. And because of the number of consultations I had for people who made mistakes that could have been fixed and ended up losing their opportunity to immigrate to Canada, but at the same time couldn't afford my legal fees, I decided that I was going to do something to try to help them. And that something is this, the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself. And this guide here is specifically created for people who just need a little bit of help, and even for those people who need background information and want to know that they are relying upon a source that they can trust rather than just sifting through immigration listservs, immigration forums, Facebook groups, even like ours, because you can never tell 100% if all the answers that you're given are actually trustworthy. And you also have to understand that people who have gone through the process themselves and had success may have been lucky. They may have included something that many officers would refuse, but one particular officer accepted it. And then those people will go back and post online and say, oh yeah, I didn't have any problems. I got through submitting with just this document. You don't need to worry about it. And then you do it, and then your application gets refused, because not all officers are the same. They all have different views, and there's discretion given to them. So I created this step-by-step guide to walk you guys through the whole process. And if you look at here, when you click on enroll in the course, right now you can see there's $497 is the lifetime access. Well, I am actually offering this course. If you reach out to me and ask me, I'm offering it at 50% off for a lifetime access. So that's basically $248, I think 50 or something, for 50% off for a lifetime access to use the course as long as you need to. But if you just need to jump in, get some guidance direction, then I've got a monthly subscription that renews automatically. So once you subscribe, unless you cancel it, it renews every month. It's $97 US. And so, and I'm going to emphasize this, okay? There is a 100% 30-day money back guarantee, 100%. If you guys are unhappy with this in any way, you get your money back. But I wanted to address this because I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you something just recently that I did different. And so you can see as you go through the whole course, there is information that covers every single aspect of it. Introduction, right here, learning the basics. How to prepare to submit your Express Entry profile. I've got a module on that. Then actually completing it and submitting it. And every single section within the profile is contained here. And then as you scroll down, and actually I'll just open this up and I'll show you. So when you open up these, there is a video with me, an actual video walkthrough, me showing you how to do every single aspect of the process, how to complete it, how to enter the information in, everything is explained here. So that's one of the benefits, is having me walk you through step by step. But I want to also show you something else here. If I can just scroll back just a little bit, if it'll let me. I want to go back to the actual page. Let's see if it'll let me. Maybe it won't. Everything is different in this lovely world here that I've got. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is back to the main screen. So submitting your profile. And then the one that people find the most benefit is the EAPR portion. And that is critical because that is the information you're actually giving to the government, where you can be found to misrepresent yourself if you entered something improperly, where your application gets rejected if you don't submit the proper documents. And so you can see here, document checklist. And within this here, I want to show you guys something because many people don't appreciate it or understand. They're like, what's the point of doing this, Mark? What value are you actually adding? Well, the reality is with all of these different things that they ask you, I actually provide in here links to samples of just about everything. So to explain what these things are, there's reference letters, there's what your medical, passport, travel document sample, employer reference letters, what a job offer letter needs to look like, all of those things and even more, all explained in this video. And so I just wanted to share this with people because many people don't fully appreciate what's really in here. So that's all explained in here. And that's great. And that's always been there. But just recently, guys, I added something that I'm super excited about. And you can see right here, these first emails, these first links right here are links to some of my absolute best content. And so these are all YouTube videos that I reserve specifically for my clients and for people who purchase the guide. And this is my best content with the most important questions people ask. So obviously, what is Express Entry? How does the comprehensive ranking system work? Top 5 things to do before submitting your Express Entry profile. The top 5 reasons you're deemed ineligible when you try to apply. Essential documents that you need to start preparing early. The top 5 reasons your application's refused. How to claim work experience for Express Entry. How to increase your language score. How do I know if I qualify? How to increase my chance of getting an ITA. What's a job offer? What if I don't have proof of funds? Police clearances, dependent family, work experience. All of these are all videos that I created that have very, very specific information in them that is listed on my Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, but they're all private. So only you get access to them. And so these resources are created for people who make the decision to purchase the guide, and not just those, but guys, if you could see all of the different Q&As that I have at the bottom here, all of these relate back to the most common questions I get. So rather than sifting through all of these, all of the posts and everything within our Express Entry Law group or watching all the YouTube videos, this is all access right now. And it's as simple as going into the site. And if I go back in here and type it in again, when you go in here, if you let me know you're interested in the special offer, it's only applicable to the lifetime access. So for half that price, $248.50, you get full access. And then the monthly membership subscription, that there isn't a 50% off that. That's just $97 a month. So you can click enroll. And when you are actually, when you reach out to me to ask for this special passcode, you can just add it right in here to the coupon code. And then when you type it in, then it will reduce the price for you and you just pay via credit card or PayPal. All right. Okay. So that was a little interlude, but like I said, once again, good old Facebook just doesn't allow me to really post links to external sites, and they just make it so difficult to be able to do this. And now that I look at this, I think maybe I didn't show any of that to you guys, did I? That's hilarious. I may have just been talking and I didn't even show you guys my screen. Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Okay, whatever. This is the page anyways, guys. So there's all these links and everything. I can't tell if I actually showed it to you. I may not have even shared my screen, but I think this basically, you can see here, this is the course. You can access it through the link that I'll give you. And if you just type in CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, and if I just type it in here, I'm just going to type it into the comment section so that you guys can see it. Canadian Immigration Institute. This is tough trying to do it on my phone here. .com. I think I got it. There we go. Okay, I've successfully posted it. Hooray. Okay, so this is it, guys, and I hope that I know that it will benefit you. And there's been a ton of reviews and everything on it, so I just wanted to jump on and remind everybody that it exists and that all of this information that we've got here that I'm showing you is all there for your benefit. All right? Okay, done. No more promotions. This is going to jump right back now to those who have been patiently waiting and holding out for me to answer their questions. So now I'm going to jump back here to the start, and I know we've got a ton of questions that have come in. So I'm going to see if I can make sure that I am on the one I started with. Okay. All right. So, okay. So Gurpal starts, can I apply for my wife? I am on a work permit. Okay, Gurpal, I have no clue what you mean by apply for what. If your spouse, are you asking if you want her to be the principal applicant or to apply for a work permit for her while you're working in Canada? I can't quite tell. So I'm going to skip to that because I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Okay, let's see if we can get Amjad here. Work experience, which is required by CIC, should after studies or during study work experience can also count. Okay, this one here, I'm going to go back to my screen again. And this time I'm going to take you to my YouTube channel because the answer, Amjad, and those of you who can follow along and actually post this for me for Amjad, I want to show you, these are all my videos. Wow, I'm just about up to 9,000 subscribers. In here, I created some special little tip of the days. And one of the questions that was asked me is, does my education, actually, let's see here. I'm trying to think here. What's the best? Do you know what? I'm going to skip this. So bear with me as I just flounder back and forth. I'm just going to answer your question, Amjad. The question for you is, if you're outside and you're trying to claim foreign work experience, then work experience while you're studying doesn't matter. You can study and still show that you've met the minimum requirements. In other words, that 30 hours a week, full-time work experience. Any Canadian work experience, if you're on a study permit studying in Canada, it won't work. So it's only work experience outside of Canada, foreign skilled work experience that you can get if you're studying. And remember, when it comes time, and this is where I'm going to jump back again to the video. I did a video. People asked me, does my education need to match? So do I have to have education that meets the same criteria for that the NOC code says I need to have? And so this one here, does my education have to match my work experience? The answer is no, but I recommend that you guys go to my YouTube channel and check this video out because it explains how the government assesses work experience and why education doesn't apply in the context of assessing foreign work experience. Okay, great question. Okay, next question here is Razib, and Razib says, do I have to have 12,500 Canadian, the minimum required amount for one person, with me during landing, or it's not mandatory? You do not need to bring it with you, Razib. You just need to be able to prove that you have it. So a copy of your bank statement is great. That's what I'll often do, but no, you don't have to carry it with you in cash. You just need to prove that you have it. And in many cases, the officers don't always even ask for it. So yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Ultimately, it's you just need to prove it. Okay, next question is Cresta. And Cresta says, hi, Sir Mark. If we decide to have a soft landing, can we have a port of exit in a different province rather than in our nominating province? You know what? You always have the ability to explain to an officer why you're actually landing in a province that's not your original province of destination. In other words, if you get drawn under the Manitoba provincial nominee, but you do your landing in Ontario, well, that makes total sense. If you're flying from Europe, right? Maybe the direct flight is into Ontario, and then you're transiting across to Manitoba. Or for instance, if you're coming from Asia and you're flying into Vancouver, that's where the flights come in. That's where you do your landing. So it's not a big deal. But if it looks like you have no destination, that you are not going to even step foot in that province, then that's where you have to be prepared to explain to an officer why it is, if they ask, why it is that you are not going to the province that nominated you. So you can do a soft landing. Yes, you can. But you need to be prepared to explain it. But don't be like one of those people who intends never to go to the province that they were actually nominated in. I think that is garbage. I think that's terrible. Because if a province is sacrificing one of those precious nominations to nominate someone who they hope is going to come and help them make the province better, and then that person just uses them, I want nothing to do with that person. In fact, I don't even want them in my country if they're that underhanded. And yes, I know people are desperate to come to Canada. Then reward the province that nominates you and actually go there and live there. Make it better. Give it a chance. Use your knowledge, your experience. Start a company. Do whatever. That's my feeling. Okay, so there's Cresta. Okay, now Sonia asks the question. Mark, just want to confirm. We need 1 year continuous work experience in one NOC, and rest can be in multiple NOCs and will count if it's up to 3 years combined. Sonia, that is exactly correct. Once you've met that minimum entry criteria of 1 year continuous paid in the same NOC skilled position, then yes, if you have 1 year in one, then you can get the other 2 years that you need from other NOCs. It's okay. I will point out that sometimes if your minimum entry criteria or the eligibility criteria for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, remember, you need to meet those 67 points. Some people may need more years of work experience. In fact, up to 6 years to meet that minimum 67-point threshold. It depends upon their age, their education. And sometimes people don't realize that for the comprehensive ranking system, yes, you do get maximum points at 3 years and no more years of experience. If you have more than 3 years, it isn't giving you any more comprehensive ranking system points. So that's another tip. Don't waste your time with proving any more foreign work experience than you absolutely need. You can get up to 6 years for the Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility. But if you don't need that and you can get by with 3 years, then that's all you're going to get points for when it comes to the comprehensive ranking system. After 3 years, you max out. Great question, Sonia. Okay, next question is Azam. He says, CRS is 380. What's my chances? Azam, you're asking for eligibility, and I can't answer that. That would require a paid consult. And for those of you guys who are also tuning in, this is the site. And anyone who wants to book a paid consult with me and has specific questions that they want answered, this is where you go. So all you have to do is type in stringham.ca, immigration-mark-holthe, and that will take you to this request a consultation page, and you can see the fees and you can post your information in here, and that's how you can book a paid consultation with me. But remember, whatever you do, remember that when it comes to, do I qualify for immigration, Mark? That's not something of general applicability. But for a score of 380 Azam, I'll say it's very, very unlikely. You're never going to get drawn through the regular express entry route. It's going to come through a PNP, one of their expressions of interest. So that's something that I would pay attention to. Okay, Amjad says, work experience which is required by CIC, should after study or during study work experience can be, okay, I think I already answered that one. Okay, Thota says, hello Mark, can you explain Quebec EE system? Nope, I can't. That one I cannot explain. I refer all of my Quebec-based work to my colleagues who are actually practicing in the province of Quebec. All right, Momin says, let's see. Okay, I think Momin's question, if I can find it here, I think it's actually more specific. Okay, my knock fits as 0124, but underneath CIC website employment requirements, it says several years of experience are required. Okay, Moment, I'll just show you this. This is something that can also help all you other people when you're trying to assess. So once again, if you go back to, actually, Moment, I'm going to kick you back here. Does my education have to match my work experience? This also will answer your question as well about 0124. But if I go here to knock 2016, and then once I'm here, I'm just going to have a quick drink. Once I'm here, if I type in, and the question was 0124, advertising, marketing, public relations managers. And what Moment is asking is these employment requirements. And this applies the same. So people are wondering if their education or their work experience needs to match. So you can see within this particular knock, there's a number of different positions: advertising managers, marketing managers, e-business managers. Each have different requirements. Under the express entry system, none of this matters. So you can see here as an advertising manager, if that's what the position is for Moment, several years of experience are required. Right here, you can see are required. This does not apply for the purposes of express entry. Okay, so you can ignore the employment requirements. All that is important is that you've performed a substantial number of these main duties. You can see main duties, and every occupational profile has these, and that you have completed or performed all the activities here in the lead statement. Okay, great question. Boy, a lot of this good stuff is going to get lost because I just haven't been able to timestamp it. So those of you who asked the question, here's what I want to ask of you. Go in, and when your question that you've asked, go in and edit your response and type in the timestamp for my answer in your comment. Okay, so that's one way you can say thank you to me for answering your question. So in your comment, after you've posted it, go in and edit it and type in the timestamp for when I answered your question. Okay, that would be awesome if you could do it. That would be fantastic, actually, really cool. Okay, Piyush says, sir, can one land in Canada, get a PR card, and come again, can again come to home country to complete the studies, then go back to Canada after 3 years? His PR card is valid for 5 years. Piyush, the answer is 100% no. You cannot come back after 3 years. If you come back after 3 years, there is no way for you to show that you have met the minimum requirement of 2 years in every 5-year period. Because essentially, the moment you've spent 3 years outside of Canada, it will be impossible for you to make up the 2. Now, with that being said, a permanent resident is always a permanent resident until a decision is made that they're no longer a permanent resident. So an officer, when you're coming back, could ask questions of you. They could do a residency determination or refer you to an actual residency determination hearing. Some people will manage to find their way back into Canada and then stay here and never leave because you don't have an obligation to extend your PR card only when you are traveling abroad. So if you are, let's say you spend 2 years or 3 years less a day, so 2 years, 364 days in a year, you in a 5-year period, you've spent that outside of Canada and then come back on that last day, well, technically you could stay for 2 years. And then once those 2 years are up, file your PR card application, your extension application. But you can always travel so long as your PR card is valid. But the moment it becomes invalid, then you can't travel outside of Canada. If you've been outside of Canada, like I said, for more than 3 years, so let's say 3 years and a day, and you come back in and a border officer allows you back into the country as a permanent resident, which they're supposed to do. If you then stayed and waited for 2 full years and never left, then technically you could meet the residency requirements. But this is something that's extremely complicated. It's very, very legal in nature. And if you do intend or are, because of circumstances outside of your control, are required to be outside of the country for longer than your residency obligation, which remember is 2 years, and every 5 years, you have to be physically present in Canada, I would highly recommend that you speak with a lawyer to get guidance on how to deal with that issue. Okay, great question. All right. Next question is Ogbedni. Ogbedni says, hi, can you explain the Manitoba strategic recruitment? Nope, I can't. These questions are all today related to the general provisions of express entry. Okay, Jasdeep says, good evening, looking great today. Your windows are looking awesome with this new colorful stuff. Okay, great. I thank you very much. Okay, here's Carolyn Brookings. And Carolyn states, hi, Mark, what if my bank can't or won't provide me with my 6-month average balance? Is there something easier they can provide? Example, balance at the end of each month? Thanks. Okay, Carolyn, so the question that you're asking relates back to, and we're going to go here to EE, and I've got it in caps here, but it doesn't matter. EE completeness check. And then once we're here, this is the policy that the officers use, and I'll make sure I'm sharing my screen, which I am. This is the policy that they use when they are when they're determining how to assess documents that have been submitted to them. So I'm going to scroll down here to proof of funds. There it is. And so what Carolyn is asking is this letter. And when you have your document checklist, your own personal document checklist, after you've completed the information on your EAPR, it will generate your document checklist. It'll ask you for proof of funds. And so in here, it asks you to provide a letter from one or more financial institutions that lists all current bank and investment accounts, as well as outstanding debts, credit cards, and loans. So you can see here, it must be printed on the letterhead of the financial institution, include your name, contact information for the institution, blah, blah, blah. Also, it needs to include your account numbers, the date each account was opened, and here's the key, the current balance of each account, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. So this is what they want to see. Now, in your case, if you are unable to get that, Carolyn, then have the bank do the best they can. But if they can provide you with, if you can just include your bank statements, that works too. So if you include the letter from the bank with as much information as you can, and then your own copies of your own bank statements, then that, in my mind, would satisfy the government. I don't see any reasons why that wouldn't be sufficient. Okay, great question. And once again, remember, please go in and edit your response that I responded to and put the timestamp of the actual time in which I answered your question. That would be super helpful. Okay, we are, let's see, we're over time now. It's about 1 hour, 2 minutes, which is a little bit beyond where I usually like to get to. But I'll take time to answer 2 more quick questions. Okay, Mohammed says, hi, Mark, is it okay to do landing in Canada on PR and then leave Canada without getting... Okay, I think I just answered that one, actually. So I think, Mohammed, your answer was very similar to the one that I just gave. Then leave Canada without getting PR card. Okay, so, the PR card due to an emergency. Can a relative bring the card back to the home country for me to travel back to Canada? Yes, they can. They can. And so you can do a soft landing, and then if you have to go back, and then someone can send your PR card to you. If you can't get your PR card for whatever reason, and then you need to return back to Canada, you would have to apply for a permanent resident travel document, a PRTD, which can be obtained at your local consulate. So it's not a huge deal, but yes, your relative can. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Pranjal. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, so Pranjal is asking something that is definitely a little bit more specific. So he talks about his points here, the years. Pranjal, you'll need to book a consult for us to go through all of this, because ultimately that's more of a specific assessment for you. Okay, Mohammed's also asking about eligibility, which I'm going to skip through his. And okay, and then we've got a whole bunch more information here from Monique. We'll skip through hers. Okay, wow, you guys have got long questions here. I'm just trying to get to the last one question that we can wrap up with. Let's see. Okay, I'll just finish off with Simran. So Simran says, "Hi Mark, my husband is non-accompanying at this time. What reason should I give? He's working in Merchant Navy." Sounds like a good reason. My husband is unable to travel right now because his job will not allow him to. He's working in the Merchant Navy. Once I come, then I will sponsor him at a later time. That's a perfect answer. So no issues with that. Okay, I want to apologize to all of you guys that I didn't get to your answers, to your questions. Obviously, when we have so many people, it's not always possible, but I want to thank you guys for tuning in, for paying attention and really participating. I know that sometimes the answers are able to help everybody. Sometimes they're not. If you have any specific questions or you just need a little bit of advice and you can't get it otherwise, remember that I always, and the reason that I'm able to do these things, guys, is because of the paid consultations that I do receive. And you can just search paid consultation Mark within the group, and there's tons of feedback on people who've come and booked a consult with me. And I'll tell you that if you book a consultation with me and you feel that it didn't help you or was useless or a waste, I'll give you your money back. But I can tell you there's only been one person that I've ever returned the funds to. And at the end of the day, those funds got returned back because they weren't quite happy with the answers that I gave them. But that was it. Out of my entire career with this express entry, that's it. All right, guys, I'm going to end off here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher. Reminding you, and I apologize for that, but right here, this is sponsored by the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide, and you can get monthly access for $97 US. Or if you reach out to me and ask for the special coupon, and those of you who are listening and paying attention can get it, I'm offering lifetime access at 50% off, which is $248.50 US, right around there, and I'll give you the coupon code. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, saying see you later.